let me give people a chance to file into Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel, here on Chaos Corner. It's story time. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Chaos Corner. It's me, it's the GOC. Coming to you live to tape 25 feet below the surface of the earth for another episodic YouTube adventure here on the channel. It's great to be back here in the bunker at Chaos headquarters. I want you guys and gals to sit back and relax, grab a beverage, grab a snack, because you're in for one heck of a story. Based on a true story. I've watched it twice. I have my notes. I think you're going to want to listen to this show, because we all know that this isn't a fucking podcast. It's a show. One man. Unique. Unedited. Unscripted. Raw dog for you, the fans. Shout out to my mods, the OTS Tribal Queen, and of course my brother from another mother, Austin Nance, for holding it down, keeping it real, and maintaining. Thank you to all the fans and subscribers and viewers that have tuned in, that have emailed me, inboxed me, for all your well wishes for myself and my wife. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. This is a stress reliever and a much needed temporary distraction. Now that we're off all the other social media platforms, follow me over on X, aka Twitter, at Big Daddy GOC, where I post almost daily covering the current product in pro wrestling of WWE, AEW, and my home company at Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. Go over to the post section, the community section here on the channel, and you'll see everything that I post on there too. Almost daily. Over 5,000 videos on this channel, coming up on 1.5 million total views. And I owe it all to you. Let me have a sip off of an unbelievable coffee beverage called the Red Eye that would certainly get you through that overnight flight, that overnight trip, or if you just stay up for the late show here on the channel. It's called the Red Eye. Let me get amped up a little bit. Yes, real men do use straws as well. No, not for the other reason. No one's doing bumps here. Let's keep it rated PG. My family's watching. This isn't the 1980s. What I want to review today, and this is a story, is the movie that was released in May of this year. Maybe it was March. Because that's correct. It's March. It's been about 4 months. And that's The Queen of the Ring, based on the true life story of Mildred Burke. This is also based on the book from 2010, if I got my facts straight, inspired by a 2010 book, The Queen of the Ring, Sex, Muscles, and Diamonds.
Are you having a hard time finding renters for your town?
I'm not having a hard time finding renters, so you know that it's always an interruption here at Chaos Corner with this mechanical AI bitch. No offense. Alexa, lower the volume. Alexa, lower the volume. I pardon the interruption where there's like 3 or 4 different voices talking at one time, and they're not the voices in my head. No offense, Randy Orton. Now, again, let's focus chaos and get back to Queen of the Ring. Hopefully, we can make it through the whole story here because you never know what's going to happen on this channel. You never know we're going to go off the air. We keep you on the edge of your seats because we want you to come back. It's called emotional investment. It's called psychology. It's called storytelling, as I always say. Now, this movie, this timepiece, was set in the 1950s era. It's 140 minutes long. It's from the Kansas City, Missouri area where it's first started and then travels all over the country, from Texas to Kentucky to New York to New Jersey. And it really, if I had to rate it from a 0 to 10 scale, I would probably give this movie an 8 because of its factual evidence and the true facts, and inspired on an unbelievable lady and a women's grappler, Mildred Burke. I want to start off by saying that the lady that played Mildred Burke, the part of Mildred Burke, who was a single mom, a waitress at her mom's diner. She was in her mid-20s, I think, as a single mom when she started her wrestling career or training for her wrestling career. And the actress Emily Bett Rickards. She really was an incredible actress for this movie. She made the movie. So I'm going to try to go through the whole storyline and then give you news and notes on what I found interesting. Now, Mildred, again, as I said, single mom. Her son was Joe. Again, I believe she was in her mid-20s, maybe early 20s when she tried her career as a waitress at her mother's diner. I'm repeating, that's what I do. The Kansas Cyclone, Mildred Burke. Also in the movie, Mae Young, who was played by Francesca Eastwood. Another excellent part in the movie. Now, you guys know my connection with Moolah and Mae Young. I worked 2 or 3 different events with those ladies back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I want to say, for a time frame, if my memory can recollect. Even went out to dinner with Moolah and Mae Young. I believe we were in upstate New York. I even had my daughter with me, and they wanted her to go to wrestling school. I believe my daughter was probably only 10 years old, maybe 11 years old, and she's now 35, married, a mother herself with my granddaughter. I mean, it really is incredible how we go full circle. Also in the movie, again, do your research. Don't go Google it. Go out and DuckDuckGo it. It's a more private search engine, although in this world with Big Brother, there's really no privacy. It's only going to get worse. That's another story for another time. But you know I bing, bing, bing all around here. So go out and do your research. And again, Mae Young was a tough old broad. So was Fabulous Moolah, and they were great to me and my family. I have nothing but kudos for those ladies. Also in the movie, Elvira Snodgrass, Clara Mortensen, June Byers, the Fabulous Moolah, Gladys Gillum, Nell Stewart, Battling Babs Wingo, Evelyn Ethel Dynamo Johnson, Marvelous Marva Scott, and there's many others that were in that time frame, in that time period. And I want you to go out and research those names in history of what they did in the 1950s into the 60s for women's pro wrestling. And then there was the manager, wrestler, promoter who Millie hooked up with, and that was Billy Wolf, who really in real life was a despicable, disgusting womanizer and abuser. And that's just the facts. Now, Billy's son was G-Bill. Seemed like to be a nice guy in real life. Certainly was a good part in the movie. There was George, one of the characters in the movie as a male wrestler, who went on to be the human orchid. And I'll let that one marinate. Think about it. Hello, McFly, is anyone home? And how he progressed into one of the most influential stars in pro wrestling of all time, and with just regular other athletes in real life. Then there was the pioneer, Jack Pfeffer. Also Martin Kove from the Karate Kid and Cobra Kai series, who played Al Haft. Again, remember these notes. Take out your notebooks. So you're better off when you walk out of here than when you fucking walked in here. So you can hold an actual conversation at your next venue, barbecue, picnic, family gathering, during the holidays, at work, at the water cooler, at the pub, the tavern, wherever it is that you hang out. Because you don't come here just for opinions for the most part. You come here for facts, to learn things. And this is History Nostalgia 101. So again, take out your notebooks and write this down. There was also the NWA commissioner in this movie, played by the one and only Jim Cornette. Corny, if you will, James E. Cornette. He played a bit part, but he played a good part. And again, it all flows with the movie. And let's get into the current day grapplers that starred in this film. Camille, aka Kaylee Farmer, played the part of June Byers, the Texas Tornado. And she did an unbelievable job. Camille is a pretty damn good actress, and she represented herself well in this film. I'm very impressed with Camille, aka Kaylee Farmer, who played June Byers. Also in this movie, Mickie James, the former Alexis LeRae, who I have history with. We've worked several events together in the Indies in the late 90s and early 2000s. Mickie played the fabulous Moolah in this movie. So it's interesting. And then there is the current AEW Women's Champion, Timeless Toni Storm, who played Clara Mortensen from California, who was the women's champion in the early, mid-late 50s. Also, Naomi, the current WWE superstar who's going to be in Money in the Bank this weekend. She also played Ethel, I'm not sure if it was Ethel or Evelyn, Dynamo Johnson. Other grapplers from this era in 2025. Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, played the part of Debbie Nichols. So it's pretty interesting to see all the current female stars that played in this movie. Again, the era, the timepiece, if that's the right frame for this, was really incredible from the 50s. Just the backgrounds, the carnivals, the circus, the advent of intergender wrestling with Mildred Burke. And it was even illegal back in the 50s for women's pro wrestling. I mean, put that in your pipe and smoke it. Let that marinate. These are facts. Again, I watched Queen of the Ring twice with my wife, and she's not a wrestling fan, and she loved it. I mean, she couldn't get enough of it. She thought it was an amazing movie. And at the end, she even had tears in her eyes for the character of Mildred Burke. So, as a non-wrestling fan, you can see how it relates to the public. Again, this was basically an independent movie. It was only released briefly. I don't even know if it's broken $1 million yet in its revenue. But one of the best movies I've seen, sports-related, wrestling-related of all time. And listen, you guys know my connection to the industry. 30 years in the ring. We took the fucking bumps as a pro wrestling manager. We came out 2 and 3 times every night on the events I was involved with. My 40-year journey in this industry, and of course my over 50 years as an agent, a scout, a producer, a fan, a historian, a researcher, a smark. That's right, and a mark. I said it. So don't go anywhere as we break down the story, and then I come up with the notes at the end. I might do this in 2 parts, so don't go anywhere. We'll consider this part one of the Queen of the Ring review. And again, I greatly appreciate you guys. Much love and respect. It means a lot to me. What else can I tell you about the different actors and actresses that were in this movie and how they affected the history of women's wrestling that you know it today, from the women's revolution in the early 2000s to what's going on now in 2025, where basically the women are just about equal as the men. Same pay-per-views, same titles, same amount of matches, airtime, and how much it's evolved. Now, I'm not big on intergender wrestling. You guys know that. I appreciate women's wrestling, their athleticism, their talent, what they do for the physicality and sacrifice their bodies in the ring. I'm not here to look at tits and ass and try to get a sniff like you bunch of geeks and goons and dweebs and neckbeards and mouth breathers and virgins. Go out and touch a pair of tits, man. Act like you've had a woman before, with all you stalkers and how inappropriate you are in current day. And that's just the facts, man. No offense, kayfabe. I'm telling it like it is. I give you the good, the bad, and the ugly on this channel. So, and this movie, especially since it's based on a true story, makes me appreciate the women of yesteryear, and even today, I'll admit it, a lot more. And especially what the pioneers of this fucking industry did for women's wrestling. Really unbelievable. So, I believe, obviously, the connection with the Kansas Cyclone and Mildred Burke as a waitress. Her and her mom went to a wrestling event, a show back in 1954, I believe. And there they saw Billy Wolf against an opponent, George, and I don't know his last name, a big guy in great shape. Now, Billy Wolf was a grappler. Not only a grappler, but a wrestler, a promoter, a manager. And he teamed up with Mildred Burke. She approached him and his son, G-Bill, at the local diner where she worked. As I said, I'm repeating this to give you a synopsis of what's going on here. And that's where she first got into wrestling. She didn't want to be a waitress. She wanted to entertain. As a single mother with a little baby, she didn't want to spend the rest of her life as a waitress. So she took a chance and gambled on herself back in the 50s. Let that sink in for the women's movement and the time frame of when this was shot and when this actually occurred. So she went to the matches, approached Billy Wolf, wanted to be trained. He poo-pooed her, brushed it off, laughed at her, told her she was nothing. But she fought and persevered. And she convinced him. And I actually thought the character and the guy was decent to start with. Showed her respect, got her in the ring, taught her all the holds, from the collar and elbow to the side headlock to the standing bumps, the whole 9 yards of what you go through wrestling school. And could you imagine what the rings and canvas was like back then? So they formed a partnership, ended up kind of falling in love. So Billy Wolf gets her in the ring, starts her with her training. She progresses. She was incredible shape, Mildred Burke. She had muscles for a woman back then, even today, that you wouldn't believe the shape this woman was in, if you go by the true life story. And I believe she was going around with Billy Wolf, according to the movie, starting out in the carnies, the circuses, the fairs, like I did for a lot of my life in the early and middle 90s. In the beginning of my career, we did the circuses. Well, basically the county fairs, the city town fairs. I spent many a years doing that atmosphere. So I can totally relate. Not the 50s, but 40 years ago, 35 years ago. I did that circuit. Not only did I do the bar circuit, I did the fairs and carny circuit as well. Truly learned a lot. And the fans at these circuses and carnivals and festivals really were something. Very appreciative, and you used to bring in the crowds. So that's how she got her start. And if I'm not mistaken, it was basically a woman's open challenge match, although Burke wrestled men. Again, I'm not big on the intergender. It doesn't work. It doesn't sell. It doesn't register. You're going to be grappling a man one night as a male grappler, and then you're going to go sell and register and bump for a woman who's 140 pounds. It doesn't work for me, brother. It just doesn't. I can appreciate it. I like the mixed tag team, the intergender, but when it comes to straight up male and female, it doesn't work, man. It's just not believable, not sellable. But that's originally how she got into the ring. And if I'm not mistaken, her first match, because Mildred Burke was a face her whole career, her first match was against the ultimate heel, the Texas Tornado, her arch rival in life in this business and in the ring was June Byers. I already sang Camille's praises. What a big woman. Also in great shape. And why AEW has kicked her to the curb, I'll never know. She was great in the NWA. I think she was solid if AEW would have gave her a chance, but who knows what her future holds. She certainly has a career as an actress. So that was her first bout, I believe, officially on the Carney circuit against June Byers. And she made Byers submit. That's right, submit, because tap out wasn't even in existence, wasn't even a phrase. That's what we call it now. No one ever said, oh, he submitted, oh, he tapped out. Back here, it was a submission. You submitted. Now everyone wants to use the term tap out. So let that sink in as far as history. It wasn't even in existence yet. And when they got together and talked about, everyone talks about shoots, a shoot match. This is what a shoot match really is. I've explained it on this channel before. I'll explain it again. Back in that day, in the early days of Strangler Lewis, Lou Thez, so on and so forth, a shoot bout took place in private to see who could win a real fight, a real match. And whoever won in private is who would win in the storyline, in the predetermined outcome. That's just the way it was. No script, no predetermination. That's what a real shoot is, for those who want to know. Whoever wins in private determines who wins in the public, and that's what you need to know. And Mildred Burke, for those of you who didn't know, and I'll go back to George, the character and in real life, Mildred Burke was the biggest influence on that grappler, George. And again, big guy. I didn't for the movie, and not in real life. But she was the true inspiration who said to be a wrestler and still be gorgeous. Obviously, she was talking about women and females and ladies, because that's what they are. For you goons out there. She influenced this grappler in the 50s, George, who went on to become Gorgeous George. Hence, at the beginning of this show, the human orchid. That's where Gorgeous George was originated, by the influence of a female lady woman's wrestler, Mildred Burke. Because George was how she first got into the business when she watched him go up against Billy Wolf, that scumbag, who ended up slapping the shit out of her, abused her, beat her down, was a womanizer, banged just about every woman that was in that stable back then in the 50s. Yeah. Respect him for advancing women and making them so famous and putting them on the map, because he really did. He was the promoter, and that's why they stayed together for so long, even through the abuse, because it was a business, a partnership. Even though they got married, they weren't really in love, especially when immediately into her career, when Billy Wolf had women approaching him from all over back then to be wrestlers. Elvira Snodgrass was the first one, and he slept with her. Gladys Gillum, and he slept with her. Nell Stewart, and he slept with her. So a serial cheater and a piece of garbage. That's what he did to Mildred Burke. But she buried the hatchet with these ladies because she was a real woman, a lady, and knew it was about the business. If she wanted to get anywhere, make the money, get out of the depression and what they were in for her son, for her mother, for her family. That's what Mildred Burke put up with in this day and age. It really is incredible if you think about it. Give that woman a lot of credit. The character, true, one of the strongest women I've ever gotten the history to know about. That's for sure. Very impressive story. Again, I can't sing the praises of this movie enough. And Burke ends up becoming the ladies' champion, the women's champion, after she gets into the ring from the gal from California, who was certainly a pioneer herself, Clara Mortensen, also a face, who was the women's champion, played by timeless Toni Storm. She did an excellent job in the movie as well. So that was the advent. And the biggest influence in this movie and on that era, obviously, was Jack Pfeffer, a visionary, a pioneer. And I can't remember the actor's name. His last name might be Scoggins or Scroggins. He did a great job portraying Jack Pfeffer. Do your research and your due diligence. Research with your friend on Jack Pfeffer and the influence and how he stuck by Mildred Burke and gave women's wrestling a chance. And Pfeffer went on to influence the industry for quite some time. Pretty impressive as I give you the points of the movie here without giving it away. Now, Mildred ends up marrying Billy Wolf. Like I said, more of a business contract, a business partner. She knew it. And his son knew it. G. Billy. He knew it. He saw it. He questioned his father. He was his father's partner as far as the business and running the carnival circuit in women's wrestling back in the day. And again, they shunned her, especially Billy Wolf. She had to prove herself, just like everybody does in this fucking industry. But again, let's remember where we are as we go forward here in the time machine on Chaos Corner. Other notes, and of course, you guys, listen, I don't have to tell you this, I say it all the time. Emotional investment, ring psychology, storytelling, it's show business. It's the illusion. It's theater. And you guys know how political and how the times were back in the 50s. Not only was women's wrestling illegal, Jackie Robinson at the same time broke the color barrier into pro baseball, Major League Baseball. Let that sink in at the same time. And then three of the women that were in this movie, and I've mentioned their names already. Let me refer to my notes. I'm talking about Battling Babs Wingo. I'm talking about Ethel Dynamo Johnson. I'm talking about Marvelous Marva Scott. They also broke the color barrier as the first colored black women to be in women's pro wrestling. And that was 1954, I believe. So just think of the political times we were in, the race times we were in, where the world was in the 50s. And we made more progress in 1954, 55, and 56 towards interracial, multicultural, respecting each other no matter your color, your creed, your religion, your origin, what you look like, where you came from. Because I don't give a fuck about any of that. Your sexual identity, what you prefer. Keep it to yourself with a lot of this stuff. But that's when the barriers were broken from Jackie Robinson to Battling Babs Wingo, from baseball to pro wrestling. My two main loves when it comes to sports and sports entertainment. It's just that simple. And then we went through the 60s and the riots and the 70s when everybody came together. It was solid through the 80s, 90s, into the early 2000s. And look where we are in these last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Ever since certain people were elected president, after 9/11, we know the world has changed, and then 2 terms for certain people, and what happened for the last 4-8 years, and how sensitive and racial everybody is. We had easier race times back then in the 50s, and I was born early 60s to where we fucking are now. We've definitely reversed and gone back when it's come to respect for everybody. White, yellow, brown, black, red. Does it fucking matter? We're all human beings and bleed the same color, red, and earn the same color, green. And that's what it's all about. I get it, everybody's culture and religion and backgrounds and what you identify with. But you have to learn to assimilate with each other, especially in this country, the United States of America. When you come from foreign lands, you can't go over there and bring your ways. They won't allow it. But this country, the radicals on either side, doesn't work for me, brother, to use that expression that everybody else wants to use in the IWC. We're 30 minutes in here. Part 1, Queen of the Ring review. The real life story of Mildred Burke. Incredible. Let me move on here with the news and notes. As we move on in the movie, just remember that women's wrestling was illegal, and I've already said that. The first states to accept women's wrestling, if I'm not mistaken, were Pennsylvania and New Jersey, I believe, legally. Those were some of the first states. I'm not sure about Texas or Missouri or even Kentucky at that time, but those were the first states, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I've tried to do accurate information here. And getting back to the 3 black ladies who broke the color barrier in women's pro wrestling. They were all gymnasts. That was their background. And Billy Wolf recruited them, just like Billy Wolf recruited Mildred Burke. Well, actually, she broke down the door. She wasn't recruited. Just like he recruited Elvira Snodgrass. Just like he recruited from the promoters of the West Coast, Clara Mortensen. And June Byers came out of nowhere, as I said, if you go by the story. She just came out of nowhere. She ended up under Billy Wolf's tutelage as well as Nell Stewart. And Gladys Gillum, the Alabama Wildcat, who actually died from her injuries suffered in the ring from a bout against June Byers. Let that sink in. Now, this is back in 54, 55, 56. One of the pioneers, Gladys Gillum, died after a match in the ring with June Byers, who was known to be stiff as fuck. And then we talk about all the high risks and what everyone does in current day WWE and AEW with all these insane matches, the higher risks, the stunt man, the high risk, all the injuries. We know what happened with Owen Hart, accident or not. Other grapplers who have been paralyzed. I could go on and on, from Darren Drozdoff to Big E. Do I need to go on? To my old buddy 20 years ago from the independent scene, a good friend of mine who ran my website and went on to become a wrestler, the Spider, Danny Quirk, who did a dive outside the ring and ended up succumbing to his injuries that night. Basically died right there in the ring on the floor. I love you, Danny. We'll never forget you. So that's why the unnecessary risks, and that's why I'm old school and I'm traditional. I don't understand it. It goes back. You can see it here in the history. So again, back to Battle and Babs, Ethel Johnson and Marva Scott. They really were incredible women. And just to show you how quickly it rised in the 50s and what Billy Wolf really did do, and Jack Pfeffer, and even Al Haft, the character Martin Cove plays, what they did for women's wrestling. And it all started with the NWA, which offices back then were in Manhattan, right in the city. The NWA, the longest wrestling organization in the history of pro wrestling. They've had many meetings, and that's where Jim Cornette comes in and plays the commissioner. And they had many meetings. And even back in the 50s, they had Vince McMahon Sr. character in this movie, who in real life was at those NWA meetings, along with all the other big folks and commissioners from the territories, from Toots Mondt and everybody all the way around. McMahon was also represented there. And they were originally against this, but they couldn't deny the attraction and the revenue and the sales and putting asses in seats for the time of ladies pro wrestling, women's pro wrestling. Even to where in Hollywood, which is where Mildred Burke went, from a diner in Kansas City, Missouri, all the way to the Hollywood Hills, where they actually in the 50s did a Life magazine cover shoot. Go out and do your history and your research, your nostalgia, which it just ain't what it used to be. And you'll find out what I'm talking about. These are true facts. Now, the son of Billy Wolf, again, a guy who's obviously was, in my opinion, a scumbag, despicable. His son ends up falling for Mildred Burke in the story. And she agrees. They want to get married, even though she's already married to Billy Wolf, which is really more than a partnership, because he knew that she knew that he was out banging other chicks. Broads. Which was the term for back in the day, but they are ladies. We know that. I have respect for women. As a father of 2 daughters, a granddaughter, and of course my lovely, beautiful wife. So just remember that. So she wants him and agrees because she ended up falling for Billy Jr., basically, as they were traveling on the road all over. And again, there's nothing more real than the money and the miles, even back then. You want to talk about money and the miles by listening to Jim Cornette's Omnibus about the Mid-South days, an 8-hour podcast. True, real, just like it was back here in the day. Again, the timepiece was incredible for me. So she wants Billy Jr. to get the father's approval. And of course, the old man doesn't go for it. Slaps the shit out of his son. Says, how's that going to look to me? The women's champion, married to Billy Wolf, the promoter, the manager, and she leaves him or marries his son? He said it'll never happen. And this is according to the movie, the story, based on a true story. Millie's son, Joe, from when he was a little baby at the diner, ends up becoming a grown teenager, a grown man, and he wants to learn the so-called family business and go on the road. They start off in the beginning of the movie where she's in the waitress, Millie, and he's in diapers, to where he's become just about a grown man. And now he wants to learn the business. He wants to go on the road. He wants to become a part of it. And he ends up in his mom's corner as a corner man. And again, I can't speak more about the Francesca Eastwood actress who played Mae Young. She really did an incredible job in the movie. And Mae Young was quite the woman. Whether she was a lesbian or not, who gives a fuck? That's not my business. You keep it to yourself. You don't make it your identity and shout from the rooftops. That's who I am. That's how I want to be identified. Because that's what happens here in 2025. Gay, bisexual, lesbian, queer. I don't give a fuck what you are. But when you start identifying, you make that's what your identity is. You have a problem. Hello, McFly. I'll say it again. Is anybody home? Bueller? Bueller? Anyone? So the old man doesn't go for it. Now, when he finds out about this, they're still traveling together because she's not dumb. She knows that's how she's going to make the money. All these ladies needed Billy Wolf because of what he really did do in a good way. To where he ends up beating her to a pulp in front of her son, Joe, in front of Billy's son, Wolf's son, Billy Jr., beats her to a pulp. After they originally agreed to, I guess, stay married for now and make it a 50-50 split because they needed each other. They really did. And she gave him 1 chance, 2 chances, 3 chances, and he was still a piece of garbage. And again, inspired by the book in 2010, The Queen of the Ring, Sex, Muscles, and Diamonds. I just want to throw that back again. And you know who was executive producer on this movie? Good old JR, Jim Ross. Our well wishes for recovery of Jim Ross, a legend in this business. Next to Gordon Soley, Lance Russell, Jim Ross is perhaps the best on the Mount Rushmore of announcers, broadcasters in this fucking industry. We're praying for you, JR. We hope you recover from this colon cancer. I want to take a moment of silence for good old JR, Jim Ross, for his healing and his recovery. Thank you. Recover, JR. Hopefully you'll see this. Somebody will clip it and send it to you. You even responded to me a couple of times on social media, JR. I appreciate that. Much love and respect. Again, we talked about how Gladys Gillum died after the match with June Byers. We talked about going to the Mildred Burke through all this and all the BS with Billy Wolf, her husband. Ended up trying to get a divorce where she walked away with nothing. We know in today's day and age, the woman gets everything, depending on what state you're in. It's supposed to be 50-50 equal, but we know the law doesn't always work that way. And it didn't back then for Mildred Burke, because he was a scumbag, Billy Wolf. And I know I keep saying that and keep repeating that, but I want to drive that home. So she walks into the NWA offices in Manhattan, like I said, in front of everyone from the commissioner to Haft to McMahon to everyone else involved, and wants to start her own women's wrestling organization against Billy Wolf, who recruited some of the girls. They left and they went to him because they saw money. She also had the loyalty of certain women, especially Babs, who stuck with her. And they had rival promotions. And she basically just about the women's league that she tried to run against Wolf, 2 women's leagues back in that day, she lost everything. Not only in the divorce, she lost her house in the Hollywood Hills, some of the loyalty of the Lady Grapplers, and she basically lost a rivalry to begin with. And he continues to battle the rival promotion by Billy Wolf. Mae Young stuck with her. Babs, Elvira, they all stuck with her. And you know who else stuck with her? Again, a name that will keep coming up, and especially in history, Jack Pfeffer. His character was unbelievable. What he did in real life is really unbelievable. Stuck by her, had faith in her. And Billy Wolf kept trying to sway him. He wasn't going for it, Jack Pfeffer. You hear Cornette talk about him all the time. Pfeffer continued to support Burke over Wolf. And Pfeffer even brings up the age and the advent of TV wrestling beginning here in the 50s. And it was telling a different story. TV wanted Mildred Burke, not Billy Wolf. That's just the facts from what I understand them. And this led to the female bout of the century, set up by Gorgeous George. Let that sink in. Female bout of the century, 1954, Atlanta, Georgia. I hope your notebooks are still out. 2 out of 3 falls for the undisputed women's title. 60-minute time limit between Mildred Burke, the Kansas Cyclone, and her arch nemesis, the Texas Tornado, June Byers. Do your research. I implore you. I keep saying it. I know I'm repeating a lot here. I'm passionate about this movie and this show right now. So they set up this match, one for the ages. Mildred to get even with Wolf, and just to further her career, to show that she belonged and women's ladies wrestling belonged, and to settle this feud with June Byers. And to quote Billy Wolf at one time, and I want you to let this sink in when it comes to current day wrestling, and in particular, Razor Ramon, Big Scott Hall, the Outsiders, the NWO, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Wolf quoted in this movie, now I don't know, I haven't researched it yet before this show, he quoted this in the ring that night, 1954, Atlanta, Georgia, for the female bout of the century, the undisputed women's title of the day. To quote Billy Wolf, "Bad times don't last, but bad guys do." You see how history repeats itself? Think about that for a second. We all know the quote, "Bad times don't last, but bad guys do." And near the end of the movie, 140 minutes, the first fall went to June Byers. Injured Burke's leg, and her son and Mae Young that were in her corner snapped it back into place after Byers won the first fall. It ended up going to a time limit draw, especially after Burke busted the nose of June Byers. And you know that when you bang somebody in the nose, you can barely breathe, your eyes water up, you can't see. She was one tough girl, one tough lady, and so was Byers. All these ladies were. As you see the chains of the time and of the era and of this show come off me as we end the near of this show and get ready to wrap this up. How apropos is that? Because she really was in chains, Mildred Burke, but she overcame. Very proud, especially since I'm a father of daughters, granddaughter. Time limit draw, a bloody June Byers. Billy Wolf in the corner throws in the title. Throws in the, I'm always fucking up. You know what Bully Ray said to me back in 06, 07, when we were going for the NWA World Tag Team titles in a series of tables matches, myself and the Outcast Killers against the Dudley Boys. He said, "Give the Guardian of Chaos Big Daddy 6 spots and he'll fuck up 5 of them." I consider that to be a compliment in this industry, especially coming from a 2-time Hall of Famer, perhaps one of the greatest tag teams of all time, host of Busted Open Radio. Busted Open 24/7. So just related to my career. He throws in the towel. And of course, Cornette at the end scene, acting as the NWA commissioner with Martin Cove, who was portraying Al Haft, watching ringside as judges. They said, "That's it. The time limit's over." Mildred Burke wanted another 5 minutes like they do in today's wrestling. And they usually do it. NWA commissioner said no. That's it. Time, 60 minutes, has expired. Byers only won 1 fall. And then Billy Wolf threw in the fucking towel. Kind of like Arnold Skolin did back in the day for the WWF with Bob Backlund, I believe, if I know my history. So an unbelievable ending. And Mildred Burke retained and kept the unified, undisputed, I'll say, ladies' women's championship. It really was. And the movie ended with Byers bloodied, with Billy Wolf, with Billy Jr., with Mildred Burke in the ring with her son Joe and Mae Young. And just to backtrack a little bit, when they split to rival promotions, and the influence of the lady, Babs Wingo, and really who stuck by her and stuck up for Mildred Burke and the ladies of that day, black, white, didn't matter. She really was a huge influence, not only in the movie and the times, but the character of Babs Wingo really, really impressed me. So I just wanted to throw that in there before we got to the end of the match here. So I didn't want to give it away, but here you go at 50 minutes in. Queen of the Ring, a synopsis, a review of an unbelievable movie that I wanted to relay to you guys. And my words and review can't do the movie justice. You have to go out and watch it. And as we get some more notes here before we wrap it up, and again, I can't thank you guys and gals enough for being here. Let me get some more of the red eye, and hopefully we don't go off air yet. The California, here's my notes for the end of the show. True, actual facts. This is history. This is nostalgia. This is the truth. These are the facts that I present to you here on Chaos Corner. The California ban for women's wrestling was lifted in 1965. Keep your notebooks out. The New York ban for women's wrestling was lifted in 1972. And that's when women first started wrestling at the legendary Mecca, Madison Square Garden. And ironically enough, Mildred never got to wrestle in Madison Square Garden. And for much of a piece of goo and garbage that Billy Wolf was, he was credited with making women's wrestling respectable. Although, how could you respect him? And he brought worldwide fame to women in the sport. More news and notes in the aftermath. Billy Wolf died of a heart attack in 1963. His son G-Bill, Billy Jr., passed 1 year later. How ironic is that? Jack Pfeffer is credited for being the original visionary who brought true theatrical drama into pro wrestling. That was Jack Pfeffer's influence, a pioneer. Unbelievable. Mae Young continued to wrestle into her 80s, as we all well know, and she was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame at the age of 84. Rest in peace, Mae. Rest in peace, Moolah, and thank you for being so kind to me and my family. I'll never forget it. Babs Wingo won the first ever interracial women's championship in 1955 and went on to wrestle for her entire life. After George's transformation, TV made Gorgeous George the most famous wrestler of his time. Guys like Ric Flair, Muhammad Ali, and even Bob Dylan credited him with helping to inspire their public personas. Let that sink in. Including other guys like superstar Billy Graham, Jesse the Body Ventura. I mean, the list goes on. Gorgeous George, actually inspired by Mildred Burke. I bet you didn't know that. I'm full of useless tidbits of facts of information. Little nuggets, if you will. Mildred Burke is and was considered to be the first ever $1 million female athlete in history. And that was in the 50s. So if you go by the inflation calculator, $1 million in the 50s, today it would be $3 or $4 million. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Let that sink in as we review Queen of the Ring, the true story based and inspired by Mildred Burke. As we get ready to wrap it up here, I hope you guys really enjoyed the effort that I put into this, watching it twice, because I enjoyed it. It really was a pleasure. And then taking notes. After her match with June Byers, Burke went on to pioneer women's wrestling in Japan. Konnichiwa, bitches. Arigato from the Chaos-san. Think about that. Not only here in America, but also in the land of the rising sun. The Orient, if you will. Japan. That's what Mildred Burke did for women's wrestling. The WWE inducted her into the Legacy Hall of Fame, obviously posthumously, in 2016. Well, what fucking took so long, WWE? When you put everybody else and their mother and their brother and their uncle and their sister's ass into the Hall of Fame, people that don't belong there. Mildred Burke, 2016 legacy part of the Hall of Fame for the WWE. Truly something that spanned 50 years, 55 years, 60 years. I failed math twice in college, non-credit math I had to take until my third semester, and I finally passed. You're only supposed to take it once semester. So those are the news and notes and the review I have. And again, it was my pleasure and my honor to watch that film, to review it, and to salute women's ladies pro wrestling, the start and where we are today in 2025. Whether you're talking about Rhea Ripley, Toni Storm, Stephanie Vacour, Roxanne Perez, Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair. This is where they all came from and started from. I'm going to sit back and relax for a minute, get my thoughts together. And again, I want to reiterate and thank all of you who stayed in touch with me through these hard times, because I know you can all relate, because we're all going through hard times. And I'll get off on a tangent here. Wars, rumors of wars, as I already said, the climate, the environment, nothing that we can control. I'll say it again. Stay mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually fit. Acknowledge and shout out to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, because without him, none of this would be possible. Let me finish off the red eye, because I will be traveling late night. I will be up late night. A lot of late night shows coming to the channel. If you're up at midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. All right, guys, gals. Stay safe, stay blessed. Get in that good book. Don't lose hope, don't lose faith, because I believe in you. And I'll say that to say this, because I tell it like it is. Don't you dare miss it. Let's bow our heads in a moment of silence for all of those we've lost, especially recently. I've had several deaths of family and close friends over the last 6 months to a year. Keep your faith, keep your positivity. And if I can influence you guys in any way, if you need anything from me, reach out, even if it's just to talk. I'm here.